Hola. It is I, MongoSlade. I once again botched the schedule. Tonight was supposed to be a Q&A, but I forgot to open a questions forum. So we're going to have to improvise. So as usual, we're going to improvise. So we got a couple of subjects. We got Karrion Kross. I think a lot of the hatred for him is Astroturf. Also think a lot of the support for him is Astroturf. We're going to go through his interview with Ariel Helwani. We're also going to discuss this statement by Jon Moxley about AEW. So we absolutely will have material to talk about tonight. But we start with WG Phil, who says he lost his 83-year-old granny last night after a stroke on Sunday. Brother, I will have your granny in my prayers. I am so sorry for your loss. 83 years. She lived a long time. I'm pretty sure she enjoyed every single day. You should cherish the time you have with your family right now because you never know when they're going to go. But you absolutely have our hearts and prayers right now. So don't let Botchamania see that. See what now? What are we talking about? So we're gonna be discussing these things as we let people come in. I was so bored at work. I listened to Ariel Helwani talk to Karrion Kross, and I was supposed to listen and watch his documentary today, but I forgot. I got wrapped up doing other things, so I didn't get to watch the Karrion Kross documentary. I would imagine it's not much different than what he talked about when it comes to Ariel Helwani, and so I'll discuss that. So as people start to pile in, hello, the Generous Sharingan, WG Phil, Kevin Abreu, thank you guys for stopping in. Once again, we have to say rest in peace to WG Phil's granny. And give our best wishes to Phil himself as he's going through this tough time. So hopefully he can pull it through. All right. So I think that a lot of the hatred and support for Karrion Kross is Astroturf. Why do I think that? Partially because I don't remember anybody talking about this guy 5 or 6 years ago. Now, Karrion Kross has been around for a long time. He's in the neighborhood of 40, maybe even over 40, and he's been wrestling for a really long time. He was never anybody's favorite wrestler. He was never anybody's least favorite wrestler either. But only in the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks, we have seen a lot of people try to lift Kross artificially. We've also seen people try to denigrate Kross artificially. And some people say this is part of the work. And people believe that it's a work. Now, the weird thing is people are like, well, the Seth Rollins thing was a work. They claimed the R-Truth thing was a work. He's still going by Karrion Kross, so it could be a work. It's like, no, he got announced for like some new conference or convention or something like that, and he's going by Killer Kross again. There's no doubt that he could be brought back, but I truly do not think this is a work. But I think that there's a lot of people out there who are trying to force the issue on both sides. In my opinion, Karrion Kross was a good wrestler. He's not really a great one. But good can get you far enough in this business. I mean, there's tons of great wrestlers who are going to be on the independents and they're never going to go anywhere else because that's just their ceiling. They don't have the intangibles that Karrion Kross has or Killer Kross. They don't have his intangibles. So, which includes size, which includes intensity, which includes his mind for the business. They might be able to do better moves, but they can't throw a better punch. You know, they don't have his legitimate background, all that sort of stuff. All the things that make him different from them. Okay. But to say there's been a lot of especially on I don't want to say the AEW side, especially the Japanese wrestling fans, those marks, the marks of indie wrestling, they've been trying to act like the guy's the total shits, and he's one of the worst wrestlers of all time. I've seen all kinds of clips. I actually forgot he wrestled Davey Boy Smith Jr. at the Ric Flair retirement show, and they were trading German suplexes to no reaction. I saw that clip and I thought it was one of the funnier things to the bit. That was really, really funny. And Davey Boy Smith is not particularly good. He's competent, but he's not particularly good. Yeah, he's competent. He has no charisma. He has zero personality. But he's a big guy. So if you want a big guy on your side, he's good for that, but not much else. Then I saw a Killer Kross. He worked against Minoru Suzuki, and he was so bad, but they didn't show how he was bad. They just kind of showed Suzuki giving him elbows to the face, which looked like shit always. People don't understand wrestling. You throw a punch in pro wrestling. Whoever decided to bring in those forearm shivers, they need to have been arrested when they did that. It's really quite stupid. So everybody's trying to AstroTurf this guy as being one of the worst wrestlers of all time. He's really bad. And look, I get it that a lot of people are I think the genuine responses are coming from people who say, wait a second, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of conversation around this guy who 5 or 6 years ago nobody really cared about. And he hasn't really done much of anything in that time to dictate this level of conversation. I think that's a legitimate statement. He's had 2 runs in WWE. He's 0-2. And he did nothing significant in either run. He's a NXT champion. He was the guy who beat Keith Lee for the NXT title, and I believe he was injured. He was gone for a while, and I think he came back and beat Finn Balor. Neither one of those matches are particularly standouts in terms of being best NXT matches of all time, anybody's favorite match. They were serviceable matches. They weren't bad, but again, they were just kind of competent matches. But he wasn't like an outstanding NXT champion. And I know a lot of the hatred for Kross came from that promo, which we, of course, reference all the time. And that's always referenced on the internet. The promo that Adam Cole dumped on him, which promptly told a bunch of people that he wasn't any good and it was all just smoke and mirrors and bells and whistles and all that sort of stuff. Then there was the mishap where he got caught up in the politics of Vince and Triple H, and he got put in the helmets and he lost to Jeff Hardy as an undefeated NXT champion. People remember that for all the wrong reasons. And he wasn't on the main roster very long. I think he worked some matches on main event. He probably beat Jeff like the next week or something like that, but it wasn't nothing special. He went away for a while after he got released. I think he worked in MLW. He did some other indies, and then he was brought back in a feud with Drew McIntyre that I didn't remember until somebody actually posted a placard of 2 of them. I was like, they wrestled? Which goes to show that I don't remember it. But then again, there's like 400 dozen matches that happen You can't expect me to remember everything. I mean, you just really can't. I was watching Clash of Champions 2016 literally a few minutes ago, which is why I was late, is that the show ran long. I didn't know that Sami Zayn even wrestled Chris Jericho until I watched that show again. So he's had a non-tremendous career in terms of moments, in terms of big-time championships, in terms of anything. But that kind of begs the question, why would he get so much hate? He's just kind of a guy middling around, which seems about right. I said it in the short, and I maintain that I think Karrion Kross didn't quite live up to potential. I think that's part of that is performance, a part of that is booking, as usual. Part of it is the character work. Part of it is the positioning. And I think that's a fair critique, despite the fact that I think I am a fan. I think that there is something there that if they actually wanted to put some emphasis on him, he could be a solid upper mid card heel. Maybe even I no longer think he could be the world champion, but now I think that at first I thought he could be the world champion in 2020, 2021. I thought, okay, if he learns something in NXT, they pull something out of him more than what I had usually seen on the independent, he could probably be the WrestleMania main event. He's got the size and the intensity to be able to stand up to a Roman Reigns or a Drew McIntyre or somebody like that. He could have been a top guy. But over time, I kind of saw that maybe I overshot it. Now I still think he could be a really good Intercontinental champion, really good United States champion, a guy who could do personal feuds with no title. He's a guy who can talk. You know, he has a decent mind for the business. But there's nothing that could have happened that in this time frame where he stepped from the Indies with no fanfare and yet no hatred, and then he became. Now we know what's the spark that led to the fan support. It was the shoot worked improv of WrestleMania promo that he cut. That he says, rubbed people the wrong way backstage. But he was just trying to be improv and do something. We know that's the beginning of the positive fan reaction he started to get. But the negative fan reaction, I think, yes, that part of that began with the Adam Cole promo. But think about also how many people who are playing that promo now were actually upset when Vince did the thing with Jeff Hardy. You would think if you truly believe that Karrion Kross sucked and wasn't worthy, then Jeff Hardy beating him shouldn't have been a problem. But those people were mad then, but they're also mad that people want Karrion Kross pushed today. Now, WG Phil did note that there was this perception that he was a Trump supporter because I believe he was part of Control Your Narrative. It was him. It was Braun Strowman. It was EC3. I don't think he even made an appearance for Control Your Narrative. I think he was just part of it. I don't think he made an appearance. Braun Strowman was like a founding member of that whole thing. Of course, EC3 was the founding member and was doing it before Braun Strowman was released. I liked those Control Your Narrative shows, though, when they were doing those special events, those very theatrical shows. I liked those, the first two. When they tried to become like a regular wrestling promotion, I don't know about that. But when they were just telling really gritty, grounded stories, with making all the characters, three-dimensional, I like that. I thought that was very inventive, especially for the pandemic time. I didn't like they were editing the matches very heavily like Lucha Underground, but I thought it was inventive. It was truly subversive and alternative pro wrestling. the first two Control Your Narrative events. It became sort of the MAGA thing, and I still don't understand why that became the case. Like, why did it become the MAGA thing? But it was deeply problematic, and I think that turned a lot of people against him. But even then, in WWE, there wasn't a lot of hatred. There was mostly mute. There was mostly people not talking about him at all. They put him in the Final Testament with the Authors of Pain, no response. He was off TV for months and months and months. He feuded with AJ Styles or Shinsuke Nakamura or anybody. He barely got any fan reaction. I don't think anybody really understood the character or the gimmick. There was cool visuals at first of him smoking a cigar and, doing some really cool stuff, and then they went away from that. It seemed like there was always that stop and start with Kross. Oh, this is fucking cool. They're gonna do something cool with him, and then he wouldn't be on TV for a while. They start something and then it'll just float away. Like, I don't know how any of the stories he was in ended outside of he lost every match. He lost to Rey Mysterio, he lost to Shinsuke Nakamura, lost to AJ Styles, lost to Sami Zayn, he lost to everybody, lost to Drew McIntyre, lost to everybody. And I don't really even know what those storylines were about. And I don't remember any of them. And I know they occurred. So, in a sense, Karrion Kross suffered from the same thing sort of the Fiend suffered from. Bray Wyatt, he was a really good heel, but there was sometimes a blurred focus on some of the stories he was trying to tell. He didn't get enough time to tell the stories that he was trying to tell. He didn't get enough wins. The crowd wasn't as involved. It was, especially during that second run, because it was under Triple H, it was almost done completely in backstage pre-tapes. So almost no in-ring stuff. He's got this girl with him, and Scarlett. She doesn't talk. She doesn't interfere in his matches. She doesn't do anything. So it all became sort of pointless. He's a cool guy with a hot girl and not much else. And even though he might look cool and sound cool, he loses all the time. And then I'm not sure what the hell he's talking about when he's talking. Now, he kind of suffered from the same thing that Bray Wyatt and Aleister Black suffered from. Because they're sort of darker characters, they're coming from a space of trying to make pro wrestling sort of higher level art with, almost with dialogue. People get lost in the fog. They're kind of like, okay, how is this going to end up in a wrestling match? Is somebody going to pop a Shango? Somebody's going to spit up some pea soup or something like that? How are we going to end up in a wrestling match here? And it becomes like Jake Roberts. With Jake the Snake Roberts was in WWF for a long time. Never won any championships, but all of his rivalries were memorable, and he probably lost every match in the rivalry. But he was given the leeway to do things like DDT Ricky Steamboat on the floor, like being able to break out the snake. He had his own segment where he could talk, and even if he was talking in riddles, it was time that he could do that on television and interact with other characters. And he got to do it for so long that the character got over. Bray Wyatt was able to do it long enough that the character got over. Aleister Black wasn't given that kind of time. And Karrion Kross wasn't given that kind of time, despite the fact that Kross had, 3 years? When you add up all the time he spent on television, it probably doesn't even equal 6 months. Even if you take all the ring time that he had, and then combine that with the promos, which were probably like 90 seconds a piece, if that, he probably had a grand total of 4 or 5 months of exposure in WWE. That's not enough time for him really to get over. A intellectual character. Now, when he decided to do the work shoot stuff, people kind of got into that. That's kind of what people wanted. They're like, okay, he finally hit on something. But they didn't lean into that. They decided to go with a different route, and he went back to being the root of all evil or some whatever fucking thing that he was doing. Okay. And again, he started getting over it, started getting some fan reaction, but he wasn't getting put on TV. And he was working primarily on main event. And I believe if from the Ariel Helwani interview, he said he was looking to re-sign in January because he knew that his contract was expiring in August. So that's what he said. And he wasn't going to be on WrestleMania, so he cut that promo. It got a lot of attention. It got some negative attention. And he thinks he may have made some enemies backstage for this. He was frustrated by some of the higher-ups, as he said, kind of giving them the runaround in terms of why they're not going with him being a top guy or in the mix. I mean, especially at a time where they needed top guys and needed more people in the mix. Seems like they would have taken more of a chance on him. It's not like you could have made anything any worse. So some people, I was listening to Don Tony. He was basically trying to say, like, yes, Karrion Kross could be like this generation CM Punk. I don't know, man. I don't know if I'd go that far. I don't know. He would have to kind of get rid of a whole lot of the spookier elements of his character in order to just be like a CM Punk type of character, a sort of outspoken, anti-authority, in-your-face kind of guy. I think he could do that. He's a very soft-spoken guy naturally, though. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure where the root of the hatred is. I think it's fake. I think all of it is fake. I think that there's a lot of AEW fans who don't like him because he wants to be in WWE. He got fed brain. That comes from the Ariel Helwani interview as well, because he was talking about how he wants to go back, and he's not closing the door on going back, and he wants WWE to negotiate, essentially, because he didn't like how the business was done. So he has no interest in going to AEW. For starters, he just doesn't want to. Secondly, you got the Don Callis issue that only is addressed by certain people on the internet. There are individuals who refuse to address the fact that Don Callis works in AEW. That's why he doesn't want to go there. They were more likely to believe he's just not good enough to work in AEW. He's not good enough to work there. Okay, if you say so. But it's also a thing where Kross has said that other promoters have not approached him because they think this is a work. Obviously, I don't think Tony Khan would be one of those promoters. I'm thinking and TNA wouldn't be a problem. It's got to be MLW. MLW has to be the issue. CMLL is probably the issue. New Japan might be one of the issues. Or maybe, because if it was like Noah, I don't think it would be a problem. Because WWE has a relationship with Pro Wrestling Noah. I don't think it would be a problem. Maybe All Japan, it would be a problem. But I think Kross wanting to leave the door open basically is him subtly telling the audience to apply the pressure and get WWE to come to the table. Of course, it's an odd negotiation tactic to say I only want to go work for here, but I want to make sure that the business we do is right. Of course, one of the things that jumped out at me is that he was told that there was no deal for Scarlett, that they would deal with him first, and then they make their offer to Scarlett. And Kross is like, well, when we came back, It was over the phone. We talked directly with Triple H, and we negotiated both of us at the same time. Why can't we do that again? Well, I'm Kevin. The tiny hats are involved now. Okay, they're more involved now than they were then. That's why there's a middleman now. Okay, if you ever want to know why, there's a rep involved now, and Triple H isn't making these deals directly. There's probably some TKO tiny hat involved. Okay, and that was disappointing because we already know that Triple H, as head of talent relations, was the one bringing certain people in and sending certain people home, and he's been that way for a while. Why would he all of a sudden switch up on a guy that he personally went and brought back? A guy he personally pushed in NXT. Why would he switch up on him all of a sudden? Well, maybe Triple H just gave up. Maybe he saw all of this stuff and just decided, I don't know what else to do. Same time though, Triple H needs a win. There's that old Thanos edit with Triple H with all the wrestlers he brought back. 99% of those wrestlers are gone now. All of them are gone. Braun Strowman, Dakota Kai. I think Io is the only one he managed to save that is of any relevance today. Naomi, I guess you could say. He probably saved her from the abyss. But she was seemingly doing fine in TNA before Triple H took over. But all those people he went and re-signed, Gallows and Anderson, all these guys, all these people are gone now. Triple H needs a win. And Karrion Kross is a guy who, even if it's begrudgingly, he's over. They brought back Rusev and they pretty much buried. They brought back Aleister Black and they underutilized him. You got a guy who's a fresh face in a top spot, or who could be a fresh face in a top spot, and you decide to not use him. At the same time, you got John Cena retiring. At the same time, you got Kevin Owens probably never going to return. The likelihood of his return is minimal. You brought in all these Tongans, and these people are not getting over. They're also not good, like really bad. And Vince is not there to put the clown suit on him or anything like that that might make him tolerable. Usually somebody like Hikuleo, if he was that fucking bad, he would get beat by John Cena and he'd be in a dancing gimmick 6 months later. But that's not what's going to happen to this guy. He's just going to float around forever. He was under contract for almost a year before he debuted. Absolutely insane stuff we got going on here, right? So Triple H needs a win. Why not take the win that's right there in your lap? There's a pretty sizable audience that's into this guy. There's a pretty sizable audience that wants to see something different, that wants somebody different in the main event. Why not give them a chance? What's the worst that could happen? You find out that the love for Karrion Kross is Astroturf, then just fire him again. You can cut people with time left on their contract. You can do that. It costs you nothing. But if you bring him in and you push him and he gets over and he becomes a top guy, even at his age, you might be able to make something out of it. Again, Triple H needs a win. He's got a bunch of guys that he's brought onto the roster that are not over, that are old. It's not like Karrion Kross is too old. He might be too old under Vince because he's in and around 40. And Vince was like, okay, we were looking for fresh faces, new faces, younger guys. But for Triple H, he brought in fucking Alex Shelley. He brought in Jeff Cobb. Triple H has not signed a hot young prospect since he took over. Even the people he brought in from AEW are, well, I think Mariah May might be in her mid-20s. But Ricky Starks, 35. Ethan Page, 34, 35. The Tongans, some of those guys are 40. I think when you look at the roster, it's gotten old under Triple H. But not only are they old, but most of them are not in their prime. They're not in prime physical shape. They can't really hang. And most of them aren't really all that good. So you got a guy like Karrion Kross, where even if you want to criticize his in-ring work, which a lot of people do, if he's got the fan reaction and he's got the fans' attention, the WWE ain't the place for anybody to really give a shit about his work rate in any way. Nobody gives a shit. If WWF cared about work rate, they never had Hulk Hogan. They never had the Ultimate Warrior. They never would have had John Cena or Roman Reigns. And they never would have had these things, even though Roman Reigns worked his ass off. WWE is a place where you have larger-than-life characters or characters that really connect with the audience on a unique level. And Kross seems to fit that. And I do believe that some of this support is AstroTurf. I think a whole lot of the hate is AstroTurf, though. I think more of that is fake than the love of him. Because I think a lot of people do want to see what he can do, and they do want something new. They've been begging for guys like LA Knight, only for it to never happen. You know, they were begging for somebody new in the main event scene. And instead of Cody and Drew and Gunther, and Triple H has not given you anybody except Cody, Drew, and Gunther. That's it. Oh, and then you had Jey Uso randomly. But that's only because the audience sort of forced the issue. Now he's trying to force Sami Zayn. Now, I'm not against Sami Zayn. I know a lot of people don't like Sami Zayn, and I'm not the biggest fan. I understand Sami Zayn's narrative value, however, and how he could be beneficial to the company, even at the top of the card. I do think that Karrion Kross could be beneficial to the company. And I don't see a good reason why he's outside of it. Especially when you have so many of these other useless people in the roster. And I hate to do that, because sometimes you do have to think about, okay, these guys are useless, but they're narratively important because they're involved with a storyline with Solo or something like that. But a lot of these people they have on the roster, whether they're Samoan, Tongan, or just plain old white dudes, are absolutely worthless. And I think that's a big, big problem. They might, even if they're quote unquote good wrestlers, they have no upside. They have no main event potential. It's going to sound like I'm picking on them, but why is Chris Sabin on your roster? There's no main event potential with Chris Sabin, and he's 40. He's been around for 20 years. You don't need Chris Sabin. You don't need Alex Shelley. You don't need Tongaloa. Tama Tonga is too late. Hikuleo sucks. Jeff Cobb is too late. Maybe 15 years ago, Jeff Cobb would have been dope. But not today. And Karrion Kross is the guy who actually gets a fan reaction. And he's sitting at the desk with Ariel Helwani having to complain about how he couldn't get fair negotiations. Now, I will say this. There is AstroTurf love for him, and I've been talking about this. I haven't really gotten into it. But a lot of the dirt sheets, specifically Fightful, has been doing his bidding. And I've been really raising my eyebrow because there's people who are saying, well, he was a source. He was a stooge for the dirt sheets because he's friends with, some podcasters, and he might be friends with some sheets writers or something like that. He might know some people. And people think that, okay, maybe that's why he's on the outside, because he was leaking information. He was a source. It's possible. It's possible. But it's also possible that those guys just like him. I think that we can admit and say that people are biased without going to the extreme, right? I don't. And that's the Astroturf part of it. Is I think there's a lot of people who are, especially in the dirt sheets, that are putting out these positive stories about Kross, trying to make the company look bad. Babyface and Kross. Oh, there's so many people interested in him because he's such a unique talent. Yada, yada, yada. We'll see. That's the Astroturf part in terms of the love. Because I think the dirt sheets they got their fingers in this pie. I would like to see them removed from the conversation so that we can get a pretty clear idea of what's going on here. But there's a lot of people who think this is the work because he talked to Ariel Helwani. And why would Ariel Helwani want to talk to Karrion Kross? Well, Ariel Helwani is an MMA guy, and Kross likes MMA and has participated in some, and some jiu-jitsu, I should say. And he was actually in talks to go fight in bare knuckle, the same company Vince McMahon wanted to buy. Very interesting timing, huh? That this one he got fired the first time, he wanted to go fight in bare knuckle, and around that same time Vince wanted to fight bare knuckle, buy bare knuckle. Interesting. Very, very interesting. So everybody's like, okay, well, the toadies and the stool pigeons and all of the minions of the WWE is talking to this guy, and his gear is still on WWE Shop. They haven't taken it down. It's not in clearance. This is all one big old work. It's the summer of Kross. Here's my opinion of that. If it's a work, good. If it's a work, good. The problem with wrestling creative is it's not creative. I want you to do things that are outside of the box. I want you to work people. But there is no benefit to working the boys. There's no benefit to telling the boys the truth. Because especially if the boys are going to go and talk to the fucking dirt sheets, ain't no benefit to telling the boys the truth. They shouldn't be too concerned about this anyway. You should be focused on what you're going to be doing on Mondays and Fridays. Or I'm sorry, playing Call of Duty or, making fucking TikToks. Why do you care about what's going on with Karrion Kross? I want creative to be creative. Come up with something that shocks people, that's surprising, something that's not really done in wrestling. Be creative. I'm not saying, book something where Hulk Hogan faked his death and then he jumps out of the casket. Well, let me tell you something, brother. No, I'm just saying, like, look, a fake release, a fake firing or something like that, a fake contract expiration or something like that. Okay. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Fake injuries. Like, they fake injuries all the time. That's 99% of the fucking business, these guys pretending to be hurt. And all of a sudden, oh my God, no one's going to believe anything anymore. Good. Good. I'm not mad at you for working. That's what the business is. When I was a kid, I assumed everything I saw on TV was real. I thought the motherfucking name Doink was really named Doink. I didn't think his name was Bill or anything like that. I just thought his name was Doink because that's what everybody called him. You think that you're too mature, you're too adult to get worked? Oh no, I'm too much of a smart fan for you to work me. You're absolutely the person we should be working. If we can drag you into this story, then guess what? We got you. Now you're going to be interested in seeing where it goes. You're not going to be offended that you were lied to. That's the business. Business is lying to people. Quit being a beta. Quit being a beta. All right. Let's see what you guys got to say about this before we move on to the next subject. I'll come back to this. I'll come back to that Naomi question. Phenomenal A says, I just came in, but if y'all watched the interview, he was willing to take a pay cut if they gave him information that explained why they lowballed him. Now, the thing is, he didn't even say he was willing to take a pay cut. He just wanted to know how they came to that number, right? Now, something tells me that it was probably a pay cut. That's what I think. We're on the same wavelength when it comes to that. They probably offered him less money to come back, and he wanted to know why. You know, like what's happening. But I think it has to do a lot to do with production. But if he's just getting over, then you say, well, now he's going to be selling T-shirts. Now there's going to be signs. Now he might sell more action figures. So it's a different thing. It's not like you were re-signing this guy in December and nobody gave a shit whether he was there or not. It's August now, and he's been over since April. So it's been like 4 months of him being one of, being one of the guys that's kind of getting a good reaction on the show. But I do think that the offer was lower than he wanted it to. That's why he didn't take it. And they only gave him 24 hours to accept it. Phenomenal A says, what y'all don't understand is that he's being legit about it. He said he don't want you guys thinking it's a work. I don't think it matters. I do think it's legit. And I don't think it matters, to be quite honest, whether people believe it or not. You know? It's all about whether the other promoters and stuff believe it. They're the ones who are risking, going out on the limb and offering the guy some money only to find out later he's still working in WWE. It doesn't really bother the fans one way or the other whether the guy works there or not. WG Phil says Karrion will be or already turned 40. Kross was always a polarizing character as people believe he was the ground zero for pushing away the indie flippers in black and gold, and he was a rumored Trump supporter. Yeah, I figured that much. Phenomenal A says it's foul play on TK on Paul Levesque for them to not explain to Kross why he was lowballed and couldn't have stayed. Kross says he's still waiting for a phone call from them. I'm thinking he's probably going to end up shaming Triple H into calling him. Triple H wants to be liked, okay? And everybody knows that he's been looking for affection from the audience since he retired. And he found that the best way of getting audience affection is being the anti-Vince. And that's why he brought all those people back. Because everybody thought business was going to be different under Triple H. He brought back Dakota Kai and EO and Kross and Strowman, all these people who were done wrong. Only to find out Vince was right. Those fucking people should have been there in the first place. Except EO. She's the only one. The only one. And I like Kross. But it's not like they're missing a whole lot with not having Kross on the show. But I think they're going to eventually call him to come back. He's going to shame him into coming back. 50-50 on whether this is a work or not. I'm going to go with 60-40 work. I'm going to go with 60-40 not a work. Phenomenal Ace says that's like asking for a raise at your job and they don't tell you why you don't deserve a raise. It's called ghosting. Yeah, and then they only gave him 24 hours to accept the deal, which is bullshit. Nobody, that's not even a negotiation tactic. That's a slap in the face, if we're being honest. You know, like, and he said he didn't have an agent or anything like that. He deals with this stuff himself, which is probably why they're playing these games. A lot of these other people at the top, they have agents, and they want to. It still would have been the same outcome, though. They'd have told them that you got to sign this within 24 hours. The agent would be like, "No, we ain't signing that." So he made the right move by not signing it. That was the right move. Stand up for yourself and don't sign it. Don't sign it and then say, "Okay, now let's talk." No, they're gonna be like, "Nah, you signed it already. Fuck off." No, don't sign that damn thing. Ace continues by saying, "I think it's important y'all watch that interview with Ariel because he basically confirmed that this isn't a game and that it's real life affecting my living." Well, he basically says, and I like that he mentioned that WWE helped him during the pandemic when a lot of his family was out of work. He was able to, through his WWE pay, be able to help his family, and, family members and such. So he has, not only is he a fan from being a kid, but he felt like he owes the company something for bailing him out during his a tough time him and his family was in, and I like that. That's integrity. Not a lot of people have integrity. Not a lot of people have that level of a personal character. You like to eye away, see Karrion like a manager? I don't. He's too big to be a manager. He's like what, 6'3", 6'4". He's too big. He's too big to be a manager. I think they probably should have utilized Scarlett more. Adam Cole buried him, and his was carried by his entrance and wife. Well, who's carrying Adam Cole now? Which I know I hate to put it that way, but Adam Cole did nothing but go backwards since that promo, because he had and I watched this just like 2 or 3 days ago, because sometimes I just put events on and let them run. I put on not Stand and Deliver. They didn't work on Stand and Deliver. It was Takeover, one of the last takeovers. It was one of those 2-night takeovers. It was Kross and Finn Balor, and the main event was Adam Cole versus Kyle O'Reilly. And it was fucking awful. And you realize, like, Adam Cole's match type is just do a lot. It's very Young Buck-ish. And no wonder he fit in AEW. And I'm just kind of like, man, was I ever really a fan of Adam Cole? And I know I was. But every time I watch his matches now, I just see that he was doing way too much. And now he's down for the count. And probably on the wrong side of being done forever. Misawa brought the forearms to the States. Don't attack the GOAT. I'm going to tell you this. I don't like Misawa. Not a Misawa guy, personally. Misawa knew how to throw them forearms. Shibata was good at them, too. Before he had the injury, not everyone could do them, though. Well, part of the issue is you have a bunch of bums copying people, and they're not very good at it. He said, Karrion Kross wrestling skill perfect. 80 Hulk Hogan, many other legends. I don't even understand if that's English. His feud with Samoa Joe was great. I did like his feud with Samoa Joe. I didn't like the matches though. I thought the matches were okay, but I did like the feud when Samoa Joe was like an authority figure and Kross was kind of going against. I did like that. I did like that. I haven't watched their matches in a while though. Yeah, when he attacked William Regal, that was pretty good. Now, why didn't he do that on the main roster? That was the crazy thing, right? Like Triple H has had this guy on the roster for 3 years, and he didn't do anything with him. You're saying like all this cool stuff he did in NXT. The same guy who was booking him in NXT has had him on the main roster for 3 years and didn't do shit. And then they be like, oh, it didn't work because of Vince. That's nuts. WG Phil says Conan said he didn't get a COVID vaccine, which led to his release. An anti-vaxxer. That's what it is, huh? I know him and Conan are very friendly. Because one of the places I saw Kross was in AAA. Ace says he was Sean O'Hare would have been if WWE let him run with the ball. Well, Sean O'Hare just. I'm sorry, Sean O'Hare it didn't click for me. I was not a Sean O'Hare fan. Wrestling fan want to see 5-star matches. 5-star matches have never meant less at this point in time. Yeah, I don't think Kross is gonna. I think that he might go work AAA. Because in AAA, Scarlett will be able to wrestle too, and obviously he's not going to AEW because of Don Callis. TNA is less likely, but I would be cool with him being in TNA. I don't want him to work in MLW because then you'll never fucking see him. And then if he goes to Japan, you'll never fucking see him. So I don't know. I want to go somewhere where the guys I can actually check up on him and see how he is, because I was a fan before he came into WWE. Even though I didn't follow a whole lot. So you got to keep in mind Jeff Hardy at the time was bringing back No More Words as his entrance thing. Could have been the reason why he beat Kross. Yeah, it was probably like a fresh start for Jeff, who was kind of being run down at the time, and he needed something, and they figured this might revitalize him. But people shit on it before they even really gave it an opportunity to get started, which is typical of the Vince McMahon style booking. Is you do some sort of inciting event, and people have a guttural emotion to it one way or the other. And from there, some people get more involved. They lean in to see what happens. While on the internet, there's so many people who are incentivized to lean away. And when you have all the podcasters yelling about it, talking about how terrible it is, how bad it is, how stupid it is, yada, 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 it's like you read the first paragraph of a book and then you judge the entire book by the first paragraph. It's like, okay, well, there's subsequent stuff happening too, but you never get there. Like they just so angry. They want to argue about paragraph 1 of page 1 and never get through the rest of the book where that may make that first paragraph make sense, But that was typical of the Vince McMahon era, where something would happen and people would get so upset, be so offended, be so turned off, even if it's minor. So some guy that they don't like beat somebody that they do like, the whole thing sucks. Like when Shinsuke Nakamura lost to Jinder Mahal. Instead of trying to see, okay, where is this going? Because they're marks, they're like, oh my God, the great Shinsuke Nakamura, even though he didn't do shit in this country. He lost to Jinder Mahal. To the average person, they don't know fucking Shinsuke Nakamura. He's just a Japanese guy. They don't care. Jinder Mahal is a guy, they at least seen him on TV, So instead of letting them people tell the story, even though it didn't go much further because so many people, fell out of it, and it was less over than when it started, which is a key to why things got killed off. They backed out, and that's always a problem, always an issue. Ace says he said when he came into the company the first time in 2020, a lot of the wrestlers gave him the side eye. I don't remember that. When did he say that? Was that in his documentary or whatever? There was an idea to do a group between Kross and the Righteous with Vincent and Dutch. I don't like Vincent and Dutch. I hate those fucking guys. Rep off Undertaker, in my opinion. Jeez. So you can't blame Kross for that. I'm talking about his underdevelopment of all his stories. That's not something I'm blaming Kross for. I don't want to say that Kross sucks because he couldn't get over in a match with AJ. I reckon I'm one of those people that understands you have to do more than wrestle in front of a WWE audience. You have to have good angles, a good character, and you have to create moments. And they didn't do a good job of creating any moments for Kross, or letting Kross create moments for himself. So it was very problematic, extremely. Paul Heyman says Karrion Kross can be the next Stone Cold. See, that's that Heyman bullshit right there. I don't like that. I don't like when Heyman says stuff like that because it really puts way too, and that's why people, in the office of WWE, they don't listen to Paul. Like us fans keep saying, like, man, Paul's got the right idea. He knows talent, yada yada yada. And then he says some shit like, yeah, Karrion Kross could be the next Stone Cold Steve Austin. And you just start looking around like, he can't possibly believe that. It's not possible that he believes that. And yet, he said it. And yet that he said that shit. Very weird, man. New Japan wouldn't work. They're not as hot as they used to be back in the 2010s. Yeah, New Japan is dead. I'm just saying that there's always companies looking to, when you're in a New Japan type of situation where they're in a rebuilding stage, they're always looking to rebound. Like, in the early 2000s, they brought in China just to do something that could be different. They might have considered bringing in Kross. But now I don't think that that's even possible. Like, New Japan is in a really, really bad space. All those Japanese promotions seem to be in really in really tough spots at the moment. Triple H got new toys to play with. Kross simply don't cut it for him. Yeah, and I would have thought, at least in him to NXT, yes, he's probably too old to be in NXT, but there still would have been some stuff for him to do down there. He could have wrestled Oba Femi. He could have wrestled Ricky Starks. He could have done some things with Trick Williams. He could have done some fun stuff, in NXT, and worked on the new character, or worked on a new look or something like that, and maybe it would have worked there. And I think that's always a good idea, like when they did with Apollo Crews that time, where he was sort of stale on the main roster, so they sent him to NXT for a spell. They did the same thing with Dolph Ziggler. I think if you got somebody that's a mid-carder and they've been around for a long time, send them to NXT for 6 months or something like that, just to get them off TV, but keep them working. They can give the rub. They're doing it with Nia Jax right now, where she just went and worked a match with Lash Legend in NXT. Hopefully she stays down there for a little bit. She can be a draw for, some of the shows that they go on a road. And, I'm not saying she should be the champion or anything like that, but do storylines, give some people the rub, and then go back when they got a spot open for you on the main roster. They need you to do something. Go back. I don't understand why they don't do that. Like, you have that opportunity. Now you have the opportunity. They don't own TNA, but TNA will take them. If you got a guy like Karrion Kross who's over, and you're like, I don't know what to do with this guy, send him to TNA for 6 months or whatever. Let him work with a guy like Joe Hendry who's super over in TNA. And they could be two guys who are over who can't wrestle according to the dirt sheets, but people might want to see them do something. That's what I mean by creative is not creative. There's 100 fucking things you could have done with the guy that could have made him interesting. It's like with WWE right now, what they're doing with Joe Hendry, where they're doing like I said, the State Farm commercials, where he's just popping up in weird places because people say his name. The internet hates Joe Hendry. Well, a certain part of the internet hates Joe Hendry, right? But WWE is keeping him alive, and he ain't got to learn a new hold. He don't got to cut a new promo. He don't got to do nothing. They're still working the same gimmick, but somebody was smart enough to say, let's do it like this. And now that's how they're doing it on NXT. They're doing it all over social media and everything, doing something different. That's really all we ask for. We're not asking you to, build a fucking Dodge Charger from a couple of nuts and bolts. You already got the rare material, just sculpt it slightly differently. Let's do something that we would not have thought to do before, or something we didn't have the ability to do before. Like, now they own AAA. They don't send Andrade. They don't send Phoenix. They don't send Penta. Why not? Why not have Dominic Mysterio defend the Intercontinental Championship at Triple Mania? Why not have something slick like Gunther is going to defend the world title at Triple Mania against Penta or against Phoenix or somebody like that? Why not? Why wouldn't you do something like that? Again, because creative is not creative. They're not thinking of what could be cool and make sense and make you some money. They're kind of like, okay, now it's like a bunch of middle managers run this thing now. They don't want to do too much because it may mean more work for them. They want to do just enough, and then that's it. And then they become successful because they do just enough. But they could have done so much more with their first Triple Mania card. And I'm not saying that the card is bad. It's not a bad card. But it could have been better. It could have been a bigger card. It could have been way more meaningful. It could have melded both companies so much more and made it so much more special. But they didn't. They chose not to do that. And they're not going to give you a reason why. Nobody else is doing anything this fucking weekend. It's not like you have a pay-per-view this weekend or something like that. You certainly could have had Seth Rollins defend the title in Mexico. He's going to beat the guy anyway, so it doesn't matter. Pick a Mexican. Dragon Lee, Penta, pick one. That's the one thing AEW actually does better. They don't have a problem sending like Kenny Omega to Mexico or MJF or anybody like that. WWE, they just have a problem doing that stuff. And you don't have to like fill the card up with those kinds of guys, but giving them something that they don't normally get on this kind of show could be just a novelty. And if you tell the story right, people could be like, damn, Penta was so close to beating Seth Rollins for the title. But we all knew he wasn't going to win. So, I don't know. That's just me. I would have tried to do something fun for the audience, especially since a lot of the people in that audience are going to be frustrated because they're like, oh, they're going to Americanize Triple Mania, or they're not going to do anything cool. It's all going to be NXT crossovers and never going to be any big stars. Fuck them. We're going to bring in this guy. Cody Rhodes is going to wrestle on this show because we can do that. Whoa, we're going to do Cody Rhodes and Andrade at Triple Mania? Hell yeah. third match, fourth match, because Andrade ain't winning, so he was like fourth or fifth match. You know, just something that could have been interesting. It could have been fun, but that's what I mean by creative not being creative. A guy like Kross really suffers when creative is not creative because he wants to do creative stuff, but he's surrounded by a bunch of people who don't really think like that. They're not just because they're older, like Michael Hayes and Bruce. They didn't been through all the Vince shit. They've done all the stuff that Vince wanted to do, so they can't be unless they were secretly against it the whole time, which we know Bruce isn't. I'm pretty sure Michael Hayes isn't. Well, the person who is probably making these storylines so fucking straightforward and boring has got to be Triple H, because that's how it was in NXT, and it lost gas. When there was no more indie guys for him to poach, NXT started to die on the fucking vine. And guess what happens here? Once Triple H brought in all the people he could possibly bring in, all the free agents he could possibly pick up, from CM Punk to Motor City Machine Guns to Jeff Cobb to all these guys, all of a sudden WWE's programming got super fucking boring. Bad. Bad. All bad. Tama Tonga would have been great 7 or 8 years ago. I'm not so sure he still got it today. Triple H too busy with Seth Rollins and the Oracle. Triple H, see, here's the weird thing, and amazing. Clash of Champions 2016. Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins are wrestling at the top of the card to see who's going to be Triple H's golden boy. Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens. Seth Rollins and 10 years later, these guys are still there in the same spot. And if Kevin Owens hadn't got injured, he probably would have been world champion this year. Roman Reigns is in the mid-card wrestling Rusev. Sheesh. There's positives to that. You know, there's a certain level of permanence when it comes to Seth Rollins being a top guy. People are gonna grow up with Seth Rollins being a top guy. There's a negative to that too, and that's you haven't brought in enough new people. You haven't freshened up your main event scene in a long time. That's a positive towards a guy like Kross and LA Knight, even though they're older. Not everyone can be champion thing is tiresome. There can still be good, consistent writing. Yeah, everybody doesn't have to be world champion. Jake Roberts was never the world champion. Ted DiBiase was never the world champion. Paul Orndorff was never world champion in WWF. So you can be a great talent, classic matches, great angles, Rick Martel, Tito Santana, and never be the world champion. You could be a really awesome Intercontinental champion, really great tag team champion or something. You can have a good, healthy career in WWE with good angles and everything and never really be considered a tippy top guy. But the company doesn't even, that void in the mid card is a huge problem. My word. That 5-match thing is really kicking them in the nuts. A lot of people on the internet says Triple H, not Triple H fault, go blame TKO. Well, obviously Triple H answers to some people, but ultimately it's his show that he's writing. Mark Forster said, where was this love when he came back in 2022? Where was this love when he was with the Final Testament? Because of a work shoot after Mania. Now it's We Love Kross, give him a chance. Get the fuck out of here. I actually agree with this. But I will say this, though. WWE has a history of pushing a guy before the audience is ready for him and then dragging ass once he gets over. They did the same thing to CM Punk. CM Punk had pretty good reactions at first, and then he became the ECW champion. They kind of dragged. When he was the Intercontinental champion, it kind of dragged. When he was the world champion the first time, it got a little bit higher, but it dragged. And then he became a super over talent, and they didn't go with it immediately. They had him beat John Cena, sure, but then he lost the belt to Alberto Del Rio, and he was out of the title picture. He lost to Triple H. He was in that feud with Kevin Nash and Triple H. It was just bullshit for a while. And then Survivor Series, they get their head out of their ass. They gave him the belt, and they let him run with it. Daniel Bryan, they did the same thing. Kevin Owens, they did the same thing. Now, Kevin Owens, he got the belt, but it was short run. Very short run. They have a very interesting set of timing where they always either do it, they give him the belt early, he gets over later, you know? And usually once the belt is nowhere in his general direction, he gets over. And then they're like, we don't want to go back. But then the crowd kind of forces them to go back. And I'm thinking that might be the issue here with Kross too, is they didn't see it. Maybe they don't want to see it. Maybe people don't like him. But if the crowd reaction is sustained and this Astroturf media blitz works, they might be able to get him his job back. So we'll see. A says Ariel interviews wrestlers when they get released sometimes. Corey Jade, for example, he's not directly with WWE like that. Yeah, that is true. That's very true. Did you see the Maven interview with Undertaker's former 6 Feet Under podcast co-host? No, I don't know anything about Undertaker's podcast. I don't listen to it. Do you think Undertaker's 6 Feet Under podcast is total ass because he featured his wife? I didn't ever listen to the podcast in the first place, so I don't know. I told you guys I don't really listen to the wrestler podcast. I don't even really listen to Cornette. I only listen to like the clips. But I could see why it might be terrible. I don't see what she has to add. I think he just wants to have an extra income in his house. Michelle has to do something, for God's sake. She got to do something. Shit. He said Tony Khan will never hire Kross. He's not a great mechanic. Plus, Will Ospreay said he needs to go to the Indies to erase the WWE stigma. Yeah, Will Ospreay. I bet. Dr. Bob. Oh, that's something. That's something. I got to tell you. Did you hear the news about TNA possibly getting a TV deal with either A&E or CW? I did. There's been a complete and total meltdown about the idea of TNA getting a deal on CW and going on Wednesdays to go head-to-head with Dynamite. Now, John Alba of Sports Illustrated put this story out. And Meltzer has been saying, well, WWE, they want TNA to be the number 2 promotion. I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters. If you're AEW, why do you give a shit? TNA is basically, it's not a dead brand, but it's a zombie brand. TNA has never sold the amount of pay-per-view buys AEW has sold. TNA has never did the buildings that AEW has done. If you're AEW, if you're an AEW fan, why would you be threatened by TNA? TNA is not a strong brand. Well, I wouldn't give a shit if TNA was. That's the thing. Like a lot of these people, and I said this when I talked about during Raw. When you're a strong brand, you really don't think too much about what the other side is doing, right? A lot of the AEW fans are super upset about WWE running shows at the same time as WWE. I mean, as AEW. The thing is, it doesn't hurt WWE's business. Now, there's a narrative on the dirt sheets that WWE hurt themselves by running a show during All In. They hurt themselves, but they can't tell you how they hurt themselves. All of their shows did well in attendance. We don't know what the views were for like Great American Bash or Evolution, but Saturday Night's Main Event did well over 1 million viewers for Goldberg's final match. How were they hurt? They sold the building out. They did over 1 million viewers on TV. How were they hurt? They weren't harmed at all. Like, going head to head with AEW does not hurt WWE at all, and they don't care. So all their money is guaranteed, so they don't give a shit. They don't give a single goddamn about any of that stuff. So if you're AEW and you're getting, I don't know how much Meltzer said they're getting per show for Dynamite, why do you care if TNA opens up shop right across the way? You mean to tell me you don't have fans? You're supposed to have lifers at this point. There's people who are ride or die AEW shooters. They wouldn't watch TNA if it was going on in their own backyard. So why does it matter? It doesn't. Plus, WWE is already running Evolve opposite AEW, and nobody cares. Nobody cares. NWA is on at the same time. Well, I think it comes at 6 o'clock, so maybe it comes on at the same time as NXT. Maybe not. I don't know. But AEW has run Collision against TNA. TNA is about to run a pay-per-view the same time as Smackdown tomorrow night. You got to think about these things. Only AEW fans seem to care about this kind of shit. And they're the ones who keep trying to think that AEW is winning these battles, but there's no evidence of it. If you say, well, AEW still did a great buy rate, even though WWE put a couple of shows up against them, AEW still did a good buy rate. Then why are you scared that WWE is about to run another show? You should be like, okay, that's fine. It's not going to hurt AEW at all. Good. Okay, if it doesn't hurt WWE and it doesn't hurt AEW, then what's the problem? The problem is certain people are live streaming these shows, and they can't live stream both of them at the same time. That's the problem. You're going to be forced to pick one. Maybe you're doing a live stream, maybe you're doing a live review or something like that of these shows at the same time, and you can't watch both. And it's going to expose that you're a fan of one over the other one. But ultimately, nobody cares. You're going to watch both anyway. So whether you watch whatever WWE show happens opposite All Out, who cares? Who cares if you watch All Out first? You're going to watch both, and I know you're going to watch both. Oh, they're going to do John Cena and Brock Lesnar up against the AEW show. So what? So what? You telling me that it doesn't really hurt them, so what? It doesn't matter. If it was like crippling AEW, then I would see why you would complain. If they was having trouble moving tickets because of it, I would see why you would complain. But if they're doing decent numbers and they're doing decent buy rates, what's the problem? And I don't see the problem either. WWE can put shows whenever they want to because the money is guaranteed. And we don't know what the views are. Unless it's on TV, we don't know how many people watching these shows. We just know that AEW can't hurt WWE by counter programming. They didn't hurt WWE by running extra long on All In. Oh, we're going to hurt them by presenting a 9-hour show. Wrong. You just tired out your audience. You just pissed your audience off. You didn't hurt WWE at all. Because the people who are going to watch Saturday Night's Main Event, they watched it. It was that simple, man. But TNA, they need a TV deal. They're in bad shape. They're shabby. They need help. They need a cash infusion. Hopefully they get it. It would be good for TNA if they get on CW. Because then I can watch TNA on TV and not have to watch it through my tablet like I have to do every goddamn week. Would be great. It's funny how people are all for wrestling. You should watch more wrestling. You shouldn't just watch WWE. Until it looks like that company is going to compete with AEW, then all of a sudden, no, don't. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Who cares? I don't have a problem saying I'll just watch this show later. I never have that problem. When NXT and AEW were running neck and neck, I would pick one show and watch that. Usually I would watch NXT, and then I just watch AEW later. Or if AEW has something that I wanted to see live, I'll just put it on a second screen somewhere, my phone, my tablet, or something, and I'll have it there. When All In ran along, that's all I did was put it on my phone, just put it to the side. Okay, I'm not inconvenienced, but then again, I'm not a person that is paying that a close attention to every second of every match. I want to get the gist of things, and then we'll move on. You know, a lot of these people are obsessed with these matches, and truly they're bona fide dorks. We got to get to the second story that I want to talk about. Matter of fact, I'll just do a video on it. So we'll continue. We got something going here. Let's just run with this. I'll do a video on Moxley's statement. I'll just do a video after this. I want it to be done for the night, but I'm gonna go ahead and let you guys have the floor. Matt Cardona, Zack Ryder got himself over on the internet without the WWE machine and his YouTube show. But WWE tried to capitalize on it by ruining it. Chelsea Green is great at what she's doing. That seemed like two separate segments. But yes, that's what happened. Killer Kross should go to All Japan Pro Wrestling and wrestle Odyssey Jones. That could draw eyeballs. Is that what Odyssey Jones is doing? He's in Japan? But in this day and age, they don't care about talents. They care about going viral and sending old heads to the main event. I like the term old head. We're going to keep using that for these people. Japanese wrestling ain't as hot as they were before the pandemic. I'm never really a huge fan of Japanese wrestling, but it's off a cliff now. I used to see, especially during this time of year, a lot more excitement about the G1. Now I barely see anybody talking about the G1. I lost my place when it comes to the comments, so I'm just gonna have to. Let's go find the comments and see where I stopped. Because these guys got in the comment section, they started having conversations. I appreciate that, but now I don't know. Oh, here we go. Having a six-sided ring in WWE would be cool. No, nope, no, thank you. I was never a big fan of that six-sided ring. I liked how it looked, but I was never a big fan. I just thought it was unique looking. You don't believe they are lowballing Triple Mania to avoid WWE colonizing. I do expect that that's what's happening, that they don't want to just turn it into a WWE show. But it's clear to me they don't have much in the way of a AAA roster yet. Because you look at the card and it's like half WWE, but it's like half WWE Latinos. You know, like that's it. So it's clear to me that they haven't gone through and decided who they're going to keep yet for their promotion. But it's clear that some guys like Psycho Clown and Pagano, who are two of the top guys in AAA anyway, they're keeping them. Mr. Iguana got over huge. They're going to keep him. But guys like Chessman, Charlie Manson, we don't know if these guys are going to still be around. Eventually, probably going to keep L.A. Park. They're not going to keep Alberto. So they'll figure it out. Clearly, they're keeping Laredo Kid and Octagon Jr. They had a pretty good match with Angel and Alberto at the Ronald de Escandalo show. So they'll probably keep those guys. But I don't think they have like a roster for AAA yet. And I think that's probably why I would have done it by bringing in some of my top guys who happen to be Mexican and putting them up against gringos and having them win. Or at least look good. You know? Like Dominic Mysterio's the Intercontinental Champion. I would have had another Mexican beat him for the belt in AAA. Even if you just take the belt off of him 2 weeks later, I would have had like Dragon Lee beat Dominic Mysterio for the belt in Triple Mania. A great moment for those fans who have been supporters of Dragon Lee and his family. It's a top championship against a top guy in Dominic, who was a beatable top guy. You would have did well when you had like a world champion and he beat the other guy, beat the Mexican guy. It wouldn't have been so bad. But the AAA, they do want to see the AAA stars. So you do have those people on the card. But I would have done 1 or 2 matches featuring guys they see on Raw and SmackDown too, just to show you that we can do that now. That, you know, there are no forbidden doors or forbidden barriers or anything like that at this point. X9 says wrestling sucks when it's a downtime. It should have off periods like November. No, I just think that they need to tell better stories. The summer is always a weak time because after SummerSlam, there's no major events until November. So there's nothing for them to sink their teeth into after like Money in the Bank. There's SummerSlam, but SummerSlam is a huge event. Obviously, it's bigger this year because it was 2 nights. But now there's no major event for another 3 months, 3 or 4 months. And then there's no event in December. So that might as well be their downtime if they're going to have a downtime, because they don't do pay-per-views in November. But they're probably going to do a pay-per-view for John Cena. They should. Oh, shit. I did it again. I don't like watching interviews. I really don't care. Belster says AEW gets like 3.6 mil a week. Well, that's not enough to carry off all of their talent. Can Dragon Lee be a heel? Yes, he was a heel for quite a while. But that was because he was part of Ingobernable. But I think you can establish him as the babyface. If you want to turn him heel, you can. But part of the issue is that he don't speak the fucking language. He still has to get good at English. WWE should have Vampiro, a legend, as a manager if he still works there. That last part is going to be the underlined part, because I'm not sure Vampiro still works there. Conan hated Vampiro anyway. Stephen Smith says, when I saw what Goto became New Japan champion in 2025, I knew they had issues, and Zack Sabre Jr. really, Jado and Gato are booking New Japan. They're horrible. Well, the stars got taken away. They don't have a choice, man. If somebody had taken Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, The Ultimate Warrior, Jake the Snake Roberts, Roddy Piper from WWF, would you be really surprised if they decided to make fucking Dino Bravo the world champion? They're just making the best out of what they got. AEW took all of their guys. They took Jay White. They took Kenny. They took Okada. WWE took Nakamura, but then you had Naito. He's busted up and he's retired, pretty much. And if you get over in New Japan, AEW is just going to take you. That's what they're doing with Gabriel Kidd. They're just going to take him. There's no incentive. There's no reason for New Japan to invest in their roster because AEW just comes along and takes guys. They're not going to take Goto. They don't care about Goto. Nobody cares about fucking Goto. There's fans, however, who will say, look, man, I like the idea of Goto being champion, and he was a draw in that spot because he was always a guy who was on the cusp of being there. Like I said before, Goto is Dolph Ziggler. Okay? He was a fan favorite. He was never going to win. He never going to be the guy. And he only became the guy because everybody else left. And Zack Sabre Jr. apparently is not a draw, which I could have told you. But they're not incentivized to do anything else. If they try to make stars, AEW will just take them. Especially if they're white guys. They'll just take them. Which is why New Japan should smarten up and start pushing their juniors as top guys. El Desperado, for instance. I love that guy. I like him so much, I even watched a death match with him in it. I'm not watching the rest of those guys in New Japan, though, but I do like El Desperado. I like Show. I liked Show a lot more a few years ago before they turned him heel and made him Evil Stooge. But then you still got Evil doing the same thing he's been doing. They're not changing enough. They need to invest in talent. Go find some more boring white dudes to bring in, and hopefully AEW won't take them. But they're going to take them anyway. That's what they do all the time. Yeah, they should do another Worlds Collide show. Hopefully they do. I think they should do a NXT TNA Worlds Collide show. They should do it after Bound for Glory. They should do it in like November. They should do a TNA NXT. They should do like a Survivor Series match. That would be fun. Again, creative is not creative, but I would have did that already. Hiromu Takahashi needs to go to the main event picture. I'm sick of him staying in the juniors. They're too late. He's already chubby. If they'd have did that back when Naito was world champion, what was this? Several years ago. And that was part of Hiromu's story is he wanted to break out of the juniors and they wouldn't let him. It's like New Japan has that problem where they have stereotyped smaller people. And they say Vince has a problem with that. That's why they lost Devitt. That's why Kushida left. They got tired of being juniors forever just because they can't grow. I know Kenny Omega got on the gas, but most of these guys don't want to do that. There should be a time where a guy is such a great junior, and Hiromu was one of those guys at a time where he should have broke through and been a top guy. But I think it's too late, if we're being honest. Ishii versus Killer Kross, I'll give my credit card to New Japan streaming service. You should give your neck to the Hangman. You would have to kill me to get me to watch that match. He said they had a match between Naito and Hiromu, but the pandemic happened, so they canceled plans for him. Well, then that happens. I hate Ishii. I don't care if Ishii wasn't washed. I'm not a fan. Zack Sabre Jr. as the world champion is crazy. Yeah, I mean they just put generic white boys on top. That's what they do. That's why one of the reasons why I don't really fuck with Japan. You know, I mean they're just turbo normies when it comes to these white dudes. To them, if the guy comes out, he's cursing, drinking beer. It's like, oh, it's like it's been 30 years of these guys. You've seen some of the best do this, like Stan Hansen and Dr. Dev Steve Williams. How can you be impressed by Zack Sabre Jr.? How? I don't know, man. I don't know, man. You've seen Bam Bam Bigelow do this. You've seen Vader do this. And Zack Sabre Jr.? Really? Got to be that white skin. That's what it's got to be. He's an exotico over there. Whoa, head like toothbrush. Gabe Kidd was just a prototype, Michael. Oscar, EO Sky don't speak the English. The thing is, they're women, so it's easier. It's a smaller roster. Plus, Oscar has such a history of being a great character that part of her not speaking the English is part of her character that actually works because she starts rambling in Japanese, which is great. They're not letting EO do that much. She's trying to speak English, and then she'll mix in Japanese words. But Asuka just starts rambling in Japanese, which is amazing because I have no idea what she's saying, but the way she's saying it is great. Dragon Lee, however, is different because the men's roster is so deep. And I'm talking, you look at the cards and you can say the men's roster is terrible. But if you actually book people correctly, it will be hard to get Dragon Lee in there. He can't talk. He'll have to be in the tag team division or something like that. But you can get him in there, But being ESL it's almost like a death shot it's a kill shot on the main roster. NXT probably would have been easier, but no. But that's why they sent Lola Vice to Mexico because she speaks Spanish. She's the only Latina on the roster speaks full Spanish. I think Roxanne might speak Spanish. I think Raquel speaks a little Spanish. Actually, matter of fact, I think Roxanne speaks fluent Spanish. Let me think about that for a second. I know they have said Spanish words, and I know Zelina Vega doesn't speak Spanish. But I know for a fact that Lola Vice speaks Spanish fluently. Stevie Richards as well claims that the backstage favoritism or hatred is legit. Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of politics against the guy. Ace says, going back to the fake hate for Kross, Sandow was another guy that didn't do good in WWE because according to him, he wasn't playing politics, which is why they buried that gimmick. I think there was a limit on that gimmick anyway. The gimmick he played it up very humorously, and I don't think he really got over how serious the gimmick can be. He came across like the genius, and the genius was never going to be world champion. Now, that doesn't mean I don't think he could have been a top guy. I think he's a good manager in the NWA. If they wanted to bring him in as a manager for somebody, that would be great. But I don't know if Damian Sandow was main event potential anyway. I'm not so sure he was. If I was, and maybe it's because I'm very into the larger than life element of the character, and there were some things I felt were missing. But I did like his performances. I thought he was pretty good, but I can see why they didn't make him the world champion. Phil hopes that they don't have Gunther be Cena's final opponent, nor is it on Saturday night's main event. To be quite honest, I don't think Triple H is going to put that much effort into John Cena's final night. I look at what they did for Goldberg, and I don't think it's going to be that much different. I genuinely don't think it's going to be that much different. And it should be a pay-per-view event, but I wouldn't put it past them to make it a Saturday night's main event. If they were smart, Brock Lesnar would be his last opponent. And it would be an end of an era. And Cena would win. He beat Brock, finally slayed the giant. Even though he beat Brock in 2012, and I think he may beat him one more time after that. He probably beat Brock in his final match. You know, to put an official end to the Ruthless Aggression era, similar to Triple H and Undertaker at WrestleMania. I think that when they sat down and came up with this idea, the idea of John Cena's final match not being at WrestleMania already was brain dead. That was already brain dead. Cena comes to you, I want to do a final tour, final year. Okay, WrestleMania to WrestleMania. Done. Right? Why start in January and go to December? We have WrestleMania in April or March. Why would you want to finish your career anywhere outside of WrestleMania? That man just wants to get out of that contract. He just wants to get away from these people. Okay? He wants to get away from these people. And there's no way that these tiny hats didn't think about that. That they would have to know nothing about wrestling. Because if you'd have told me John Cena was talking about retiring, I'd be like, okay, well, who's his last opponent going to be? And it absolutely is going to be at WrestleMania, right? No, it's going to be on a random December event that we have not fully articulated yet. Oh, you people are retarded. You're retarded. John Cena's final event is not going to be at WrestleMania. Oh, okay. So now we're just fuck it at this point. You know, like screw it at this point, man. Like these guys are trying to get out of there. You know, I can understand Goldberg. I would probably still try to fit his at a big event. Probably would have dragged his final match to SummerSlam just to have something special for that first night, you know. But that's Vince McMahon thinking. They're thinking like, okay, well, Saturday night's main event is all fine. It's going to be in the archives anyway, so go ahead and do it. I'm thinking it from the perspective of this is an event that people are going to want to not have marred by commercials and not have NBC cut off the speech at the end or some shit. Not getting his match to WrestleMania is a huge mistake. It goes to show that he just wants to get away from these people and he don't care. All right? He just wants to get away from them. He just wants to escape this vortex that these people have created. And it's not lost on me that these guys are getting the hell out of there now. And I don't expect Roman to be around much longer either. And next year, I think they said AJ Styles is done. That he's talking about retiring at WrestleMania. So you're talking about guys tipping their hat and saying, I'm out of here, boss. I just can't believe they didn't talk Cena into going at least to WrestleMania 42. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And then you have his final year and he doesn't win the Royal Rumble. Dumb. Just really, really dumb. I don't really care who his final opponent is. I think it should be Brock for the end of an era. But if it's going to be somebody else, I don't know. They've already done Randy, and Triple H just said they're not doing Randy again. They're not doing Punk again. AJ Styles, maybe Styles and Cena. But I would do Styles before Brock, though, if that's the case. The fact they knew of his retirement for 6 months didn't. Oh, they're so stupid. They're incredibly stupid. They're very stupid people. And then they let The Rock have influence over the storyline. The storyline is John Cena's retiring. We don't need The Rock. Dumb. It's so stupid, man. Just think about that. The Rock could have done something great with somebody else. John Cena didn't need The Rock in his storyline. He didn't need it. If The Rock would have botched the storyline, but it helped Kevin Owens, great. You made Kevin Owens. Okay? You put Kevin Owens on a different level. And I know that was the idea, that they were going to do something and it was going to benefit Kevin Owens. All right, fine. That would have been great. You know? I would have been unhappy at the time because I don't like Kevin Owens. But it wouldn't have marred John Cena's heel, that when he got that bullshit heel turn, and John Cena wouldn't have been able to do something with someone else. Like you could have, if you said, okay, Cena's gonna have his retirement tour, he's gonna have one more match at WrestleMania, I would have given him CM Punk, Cena, the main event of WrestleMania Night 1. Punk was already in a non-title match. But this is John Cena's retirement tour. I would have given him Punk, Cena, Night 1, WrestleMania, did that match, and then built up to the Orton match, then built up to the Styles match, then brought back Brock, then maybe did the angle with Cody, then maybe do something with Drew, then maybe do something else with Cody, maybe a tag team match or something. All it ended up to him and Brock Lesnar at the end. Because to me, there is no greater John Cena opponent you have left than Brock Lesnar. They're the two guys from that 2002 generation that are still around. They're the only two that's still active, that were top stars at the time. That is the end of that era. Orton's the only other one. And he's not retiring anytime soon. Then you would have to think about, okay, Randy Orton was going to retire. Who should his final opponent be? Because Cena's going to be gone. And Brock's not like a big Orton enemy, so you can't really do that. Who would he be? You just have to wrestle one of the roster guys. It'd be Gunther. I probably would have had John Cena versus Goldberg too. Two guys who it doesn't matter who wins or who loses. It's a match nobody's ever seen before. It's something fresh. It's something different. John Cena retires Bill Goldberg and then maybe is retired or beats Brock Lesnar on his way to retire. As a way of getting all these old fucks on one track and not interfering with the rest of the storylines. But they had so much time to work on this, and they ended up with, yes, his last match is going to be in December. Stupid. And the fact nobody else has noticed this by now is dumb. You mean to tell me his last match is not at WrestleMania? It's going to be at the end of December? You're an idiot. You're an idiot. I'm pretty sure pitching that idea to Vince, it's got to be like talking to Gordon Ramsay about making a meal, and you're talking about burning everything. Oh, yes, we're going to overcook this steak, and we're going to spit in the red wine. What the fuck are you doing? The first thing should have came to mind is, how do we get him to WrestleMania? Not this is John Cena's last WrestleMania. Why is it John Cena's last WrestleMania? Why can't he be at the one next year? That would have been the first thing I'd have told John. Like, bro, we'll do it, but it's going to be WrestleMania to WrestleMania. We'll do something at 41 that leads to 42. That's it. You can have your one last year, but it ain't going to be January to December. No, we're not going to let that happen. We're going to get 2 WrestleManias out of this. At least. These people are stupid. Really stupid. You said maybe he's going to do more with the DCU. Even if that's the case, even if that is the case, you can at least lock him in for WrestleMania. At least lock him in for. Maybe they could They have the match with Brock, and then there's one more appearance left. This is where you get the creative thinking. So Cena wrestles Brock. He gets beat. He gets his ass beat. They stretcher him out, and Cena has one more event to do on his contract or whatever. And then it boils over to the new year. And they say, well, Cena, technically you are retired, but you do owe us contractually one more appearance. All right? And they can even do the whole thing where it's Adam Pearce and Nick Aldis talking amongst themselves about it. And then they get a note from John Cena that says WrestleMania, Brock Lesnar, Hell in a Cell, or something like that. And he's going to wrestle one more time, make one more appearance at WrestleMania in a rematch against Brock Lesnar, Hell in a Cell, no holds barred, whatever, and have his last final match, end of an era, call it a day. Something to get him to fucking April. All right? The fact that they're going to let this thing end in December means that their hands are not on the wheel. And whoever is driving don't care. All right? Hands on the wheel, don't care. Alex Shelley versus John Cena versus Tyler Bate versus KK. I'm surprised they didn't decide to try to have John Cena versus Johnny Gargano. Oh, Lord. Imagine Undertaker versus John Cena in a cinematic type match, like when Taker did it with AJ Styles and the Good Brothers at some farmhouse. I think Cena would probably be able to do that. It'd probably remind him a lot of the TV shows and stuff that he does now. But that would be sweet. But you can't really do it in a full arena because people have to watch screens. So you can't really do it that way. Like the pandemic, they was able to get away with it. I don't know if they can get away with it now. I know AEW does a whole lot of people are watching the screens, but I'm not sure WWE will be able to get away with it. They announced Peacemaker 2 and hinted at Peacemaker being in Supergirl when that comes out next year. But Peacemaker 2 is coming out in August. It's coming out next week, actually. So it's already wrapped. So unless he's going to shoot some more stuff, obviously probably shoot next year's Peacemaker stuff. And Supergirl, come on. I know he's friends with that James Gunn, but nobody cares about Supergirl. I guarantee it. Let it all play out. Let it breathe. Papa H knows what the fuck he's doing. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think Cena not wanting to politic has been a big problem. He should have took control of this thing. He should have basically picked his opponents from the people on the roster that he wanted to work with, and they went in corner and worked on it. Like personally, I think it was haphazard how they put together him and Punk. I think it was haphazard how they put together him and Orton. I think the whole thing with the heel turn was a mistake. I think him not getting in there with a guy like Drew McIntyre earlier was a mistake. I don't mind the two matches with Cody. I do mind the tag team match that they had, even though it was on TV. I don't really care about the two matches he had with R-Truth, even though, okay, it ended up making sense in the end, I guess, because R-Truth's character is tied so much into John Cena. Just felt like it was a waste because R-Truth was not taken as a serious character. And the Logan Paul match, I don't understand the Logan Paul match. I don't get it. I mean, I don't even hate Logan Paul. I just don't get it. It didn't work for me. I think that for it as a normal match, it's fine. But this is one of the last matches of his career. It's not good. It's not fine. I think that there's probably, no doubt in my mind, they probably wanted to have Kevin Owens on this list, but he's hurt. So that's because he had some really good matches with Kevin Owens. He really did. He had some bangers with Kevin Owens. And no doubt he probably wanted to have another match with Kevin Owens. And I would expect him to have a match with AJ Styles too. But I think if they'd have let Cena book this thing himself, it probably would have turned out better than Triple H having his fingerprints all over it. People talk about how bad the Kurt Angle final match is. Look at this run. Angle could barely move, by the way. Like, he wasn't, 100%. And Cena's not 100%. Cena's like 70%. But Angle could barely go. All right? Angle could barely go. Cena can still go. He can still bump. He can still work. I understand why you don't want to put Roman in that. Him and Roman had a match like a year or two ago. It's kind of soon to do that again. And he hasn't beaten Roman before, and there's no reason to beat Roman now. He's already passed that torch. But another Rollins match should be on the table because Rollins has been there long enough, and Rollins and Cena have had some run-ins. But really, it should be guys that Cena barely got in there to work with, like Drew McIntyre, who are now top guys who could use the rub, or guys he's been in there so many times you want to see them mix up one more time. If you want to give people a big rub, you put Cena in a Survivor Series match, and you put a bunch of other people on the other side that he's never worked with before, who got a chance to get in there and work with him. That's how you would do that stuff if you were trying to. There's so many people vying to get in John Cena's orbit for this retirement thing. You put Logan Paul in a tag match, or you put Logan Paul in a Survivor Series match where he's one of many people who get in there to work with John. You don't give him his own fucking match. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? It doesn't matter, man. It's too late to care about that kind of shit. You said apparently Edge's contract is running up in October, so maybe they're holding out for Edge versus Cena one more time. He's kind of Cena's first adversary. He's Cena's main adversary. So I don't think Edge will come in just to do one match with John Cena and that's it, and then go back. Like he comes in, does one match with John Cena, and then goes back. No. Creative ain't creative. I probably would have pitched it. I probably would have said, okay, Cena and Edge one more time in December, and then Edge can take a couple of months off and go back to AEW if he wants to. But maybe AEW will have a problem with that. They hate the idea of people going back and forth. They don't like that. The only 4 people you think of Cena, Brock, Edge, Randy, Punk. Yeah. But, when there are other guys he had good feuds with in recent years, and I think Kevin Owens is one of those people. I think Danielson is one of those people. You think Styles is one of those people. But you don't have access to all of those people. Danielson is not there, and Kevin Owens is now hurt. So you have to start it. But you got 3 of the main 4. Just make those matches important. I think that they kind of shit on the Orton and Punk matches. I think they earned themselves a do-over. Do those 2 matches over. Okay. Do them again. Cody got 2. Punk should be able to get 2. Orton should be able to get 2. Okay. Do them over. This time without that outside interference and without the bullshit. Got the bullshit heel turn. Just do them again. If he has to wrestle somebody on Saturday Night's main event, make it Randy Orton. He has to wrestle somebody in Saudi Arabia or at some, I don't know, No Mercy show. Let it be Punk. But I do want him to wrestle Drew McIntyre. That's for sure. I think he got like 10 appearances or fewer left. So they've already wasted a whole lot of these things. You think Orton is seen as made adversary? I think it's Edge, personally. A says it wouldn't make sense for Edge to leave AEW right after All Out in Toronto, especially. Well, he left WWE after a match on Smackdown, for God's sake. He just wanted to get out of there. Okay. You can look at these guys and tell they just want to get out of there. Edge versus Sheamus was Edge's last match. He just wanted to go, dog. He just wanted to get out of there. All right. He just wanted to go. It didn't help Sheamus at all. For starters, Sheamus lost. So it didn't help Sheamus at all. It didn't really help Edge at all either. And it was on a random episode of SmackDown. He just wanted to get out of that contract and out of that company. And something tells me that's exactly what they got going on with John Cena. He just wanted to get out of there. Just wants to go. All right. I'll give you one more year. I don't give a fuck who you put on the other side. Like when he says he don't care, that's when I just started shaking my head. Like, you have to care. I think, and John Cena's the kind of guy that in 10, 15 years, when he's old and he's got gray hair now to where his bald spot used to be, he's still not going to bury these people. You know, he's still not going to say that their ideas were dumb, and he's still not going to do that. He's probably just still going to talk about how hard everybody works and how hard he works and all that shit. And if Triple H was telling stories, the shows would be better. They would be less dry. But they're very, very dry. Extremely dry. A says that makes me think FTR will go over Edge and Christian at All Out. So if that's the case, I can see him leaving right after. I would really dislike if Edge and Christian lost that match. I would really dislike that. It would be great for FTR, but I would really hate that. And I would also really hate for Edge to leave right after his reunion with Christian. Because I thought the general idea was for they were going to work their last contracts and stuff together, and they'd probably leave at the same time. But if Edge is going to, like, I got to have one more match with Cena, it's great for the fans, it's good for everybody, I can see how he can get away with that. It's just I don't think AEW would take him back. Because they take this kind of stuff seriously. They take it very personal. So, come on now. Roll Tide. Well, why did they book the tag match next week instead of waiting it all out? Because they booked the tag match for them to wrestle those fucking kids. That Nick Wayne thing. That's what they're wrestling. At All Out, it will probably be FTR. But they more than likely want to work out the kinks and try to drag 2 matches out of them. The only reason that you would do the big turn instead of doing it in Toronto where it would have got a bigger reaction is that you want to work the gimmick out and give those kids the rub. But I honestly don't think they deserve it, and I don't think that building was really all that excited for Edge and Christian coming back together. Very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. Stifler's mom vibe. She's a very young hot mom too. Sure. Milk, definitely. So you think that they're pushing the story early to give them another moment at the show? Yeah, I think that you want them to probably come in together in Toronto. Forbidden Doors in Toronto, right? No, All Out is in Toronto. Forbidden Door is where? In England? They're also going to be in Scotland next week. I think Forbidden Door was a cool idea when nobody else was doing crossovers, but now crossovers are happening all the time. It kind of lost its punch. And I also think that crossovers were cool when New Japan or CMLL, whatever, had a pretty good roster. But now that New Japan's roster has been absolutely decimated, I don't really see the point of a Forbidden Door concept. You kind of feeling Christian can't wait for Edge to leave. I think Edge just had in his mind, we're going to retire together. And then Christian's going to be like, well, that's what you think. You can retire. I'm staying. I want to get away from this fucking guy. Maybe they should beat the Hurt Business for the tag team belts. Maybe they should do that. Maybe Edge and Christian should beat the Hurt Business for the tag team belts. Yeah, maybe they should beat them for the tag team belts. Aren't they having a tournament right now? Is the tournament over? I don't know what's happening with that. Look, I can see Edge and Christian beating Shelton Benjamin and Lashley. I like that idea. I don't mind that. It's a great rub for Lashley and Shelton, and those are one of the few guys who could give Lashley and Shelton Benjamin a rub. They've never worked with them before, especially as a tag team. Edge has never worked with Lashley, I don't think, as a main event guy. I don't remember them ever working together, actually. I'm pretty sure I've seen Christian and Shelton Benjamin wrestle. I'm not so sure if I've seen Shelton Benjamin and Edge wrestle, but it could almost assuredly be very good. With all of those guys working together, all professionals. If Edge and Christian are going to have one last run, FTR, of course, you got to do that. But I think the Hurt Business should be on that list too. Why not? Oh, Lashley's going to break Edge's neck. Is it better if Nick Wayne breaks his fucking neck? Yeah, man. I think they're playing games with the Hurt Syndicate. They're not doing anything on that show. You know, they kicked out MJF, reasons unknown, and now they're not even featured on the show anymore. That's the shit. So, I don't know. I don't know. They should have another storyline waiting for them, man. Or maybe them trying to recruit a new guy or something. Try to recruit Kevin Knight. Like that was a good storyline they did with Apollo Crews. They tried to recruit him, and he refused to go, and that led to them feuding. They should do that with Kevin Knight. All these people who are running around, Kevin Knight's going to be the future. He hasn't won a fucking match in forever. But if you do a storyline where MVP tries to recruit him and he's fighting against them, that could make him bigger. That could really help. If he's going to lose matches, he should lose matches to much better guys. Him losing a match to Moxley doesn't matter, but him like really fighting 3-on-1 against the Hurt Business and him having to fight from underneath, maybe one other person tries to help him, that could really get him over. But again, creative is not creative. Seeing Lashley and Shelton get beat up by Speedball and Kevin Knight is funny but not realistic. Look, Speedball offense looks like shit. And let's just call it how we see it. It's terrible. Can we trade Motor City Machine Guns and DIY for the entire Hurt Syndicate? Please throw in some extras. All the Samoans that are not Usos or Roman Reigns, throw them in there too. All right, all of them. Wyatt Six, take them and throw them in there. I will gladly accept that trade. Take the entire Wyatt Six, take the entirety of DIY, including Candice LeRae, take Motor City Machine Guns, their terrible pop guns at the beginning of their theme song, take all of it and get rid of it. Just ship them on to AEW. Alex Shelley would be treated like such a huge star in AEW, man. He really would. He's in the wrong company. Because they love indie wrestlers, Alex Shelley is one of the most prolific indie wrestlers ever. They treat AR Fox like he's fucking Hulk Hogan. So they'd be bowing to Alex Shelley if he was to pop up on AEW TV. I don't know about Chris Sabin, but Alex Shelley, yeah, they bow and lick the bottom of his boots. I like Jacob Fatu, I really do. MVP did the same thing with Sammy Guevara back in Mexico, according to Conan, where he refused to put him over in a match in Mexico. He should just beat him up. I think if you got a problem with Sammy Guevara, you should just beat his ass. And I also can understand not wanting to work with Sammy Guevara. He's the shit. Now, here's an interesting thing. I actually don't disagree. I like Ciampa as a solo act. I watched him wrestle Gunther at one of these NXT shows recently. And I forgot how intense he could be as a singles act. He's a very small man, and that's obviously an issue. But he has intensity. He knows how to fight from underneath. He has passion. He has fire. I like Ciampa. He can talk. I like Ciampa as a solo act. He's just tiny as shit. You know, he reminds me a lot of He Who Shall Not Be Named, except for not of the baby murdering variety. $6 I don't think so. I don't think he's 6. He's about the same height as Gargano, and Gargano's like 5'8" or something like that. He might have been wearing boots that made him look 6 foot, but I don't think Tommaso Ciampa is 6 feet tall. I don't believe that one at all. Vince had Ciampa with Miz, and they took that shit apart soon as Triple H took over. But the idea was that they were going to use Miz to get Ciampa over, which probably would have worked because Ciampa was a serious character and Miz is a goofball. People don't understand working with Miz works. He is salt. The Miz is salt. You put the Miz on anything, it works. Only time it doesn't work is if you're terrible or if the creative ain't creative. Otherwise, if you work with the Miz, you're going to get over. Whether on the other side of the ring of Miz or on his same side. M Studios would like me to do a video picking which guys to keep or release from the WWE roster. I would like to do that. I'm actually very familiar with the WWE roster. I could do that without a problem. Go through their roster list and pick guys out. I even do Evolve because I've seen quite a few people in Evolve that I would say, man, why are they still around? Why do they exist? But I could do that. That would be fun. I know Cornette did it. That's the only reason I probably wouldn't. It'd be too much like doing what he already did. Do I think a wrestler that size can be successful? Well, considering the main event guys are getting smaller, then yes. Because Rollins is not a big guy. He's probably taller than these guys, but he's not that much bigger than they are. Gunther is a big guy, but it's not like they're dealing with a bunch of Drew McIntyres on the roster. McIntyre is a fucking monster, okay? You're not dealing with like if there was the age of Brock Lesnar and John Cena and Randy Orton, no. But Seth Rollins, yeah, Punk, yeah, they can wrestle Punk, no problem. Punk he's not that big, you know. If you can wrestle 50-50 with Dominic Mysterio and it's believable, then yeah, you could probably be top guy. Because Dominic Mysterio is probably going to end up being a top guy soon, and he's not a big guy either. but he's a really good character guy. But the guys are getting smaller, you know. So yeah, Cody's probably deceptively big, but he's not that big either. He's not Cena big. He's not McIntyre big. Alistair is not that big. No, he's not. He's a short guy too. I'm okay with McIntyre as a heel, but they gotta get him something. He needs something. And as a bad guy, you're gonna lose more. But he lost a lot as a babyface too, which is very weird, especially in the Roman Reigns matches. Punk gave Brock one of his best matches at SummerSlam. Yeah, that's true. But that's because he knew how to work with them. And that is what people want to see. Like, genuinely, people want to see Brock fight smaller guys who have passion and know how to fight, and him give a little something to them. Like, the matches with like Finn Balor and the matches with like Ricochet didn't do those guys any favors. But the AJ Styles match, the Punk match, the Danielson match, those matches were shorter. They were shorter than they probably should have been, but they were almost like the perfect length for a guy like them to be wrestling Brock Lesnar. You have swipe right on Evolve, but that Olympic chick is on NXT. Get the fuck out of here. They kicked her off of NXT to Evolve, and then they brought her right back. Well, what are they doing? What are they doing? I don't know, man. Chelsea Green's gonna have a really hard time. And Chelsea Green is not great. So this is gonna be very fucking fun. Okay, very fun. They need to call Natalya. If she's good, they need to call Natalya and send the Olympic girl to wrestle with Natalya. Send her to Calgary for 90 days and see what happens. Because if working with Natalya made Maxine Dupree passable, then that should, and I think she's been working with Jade too. Send Tamara Stock to Calgary. Send her there for 90 days. She can eat moose knuckles or whatever the fuck for the next month and see if they can pull something out of her. Because she's going to kill Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green is going to die. Because that girl is super green. All right. That girl green as shit. Chelsea's going to get hurt. He said they can't sign MJF. They got BJ Ray. The thing is, BJ Ray has been hanging around for like 2 or 3 years, and he has not done anything. They smacked him a couple of times on NXT, but that's it. He ain't done shit else. Like, he could at least be an antagonist. He probably would fit in with Swipe Right and the rest of those. Oh, I hate those guys so much. Which means they're working. He could probably fit in with them. You know, he's a little bit more of a jock than they are, but it could really work. But they don't do anything with that guy. Is he still on LFG too? Yeah, Shawn Legacy should definitely be on Evolve. He should be on NXT at this point. I don't know why he's on Evolve. I guess they want to have some people on Evolve worth watching. Because I think Keanu Carver shouldn't be on Evolve either. Neither should Kylie Armstrong. They should go ahead and call all 3 of them up, you know. But Evolve just started. So, you know, give them some time. Give them 6 to 8 months or something like that. And then once they do the draft, which I guess it's supposed to be a draft this year, they haven't had one yet. And they start firing some people, and they're gonna bring some people up from NXT. Then it'll probably be the time to bring up Kylie Armstrong and Keanu Carver and all of them up to Evolve, up to NXT. It seems like the right decision to make. I would get rid of BJ Ray. He sucks. For starters, he's annoying. And I don't think he has a wrestling personality. I think that's just how he is. He was so annoying on that Next Gen show. I hated him so much. And it wasn't heel heat. It was get the fuck off my TV. Who was this bum heat? Whatever happened to Kylie Ray? She was supposed to be a top babyface of AEW. She is now the WWE IED Showcase champion. Don't ask me what that means, but that's what she's doing right now. I heard she's like in her mid-30s, and she's still like hanging around Evolve. They might as well go ahead and bring her up to NXT too while they're at it. But they don't want her to freak out or anything. LFG is the new spiritual successor to Tough Enough. One of many bastard Tough Enough children. I do like Kendall Gray. She doesn't have any offense, but she has decent movement, and that really helps. She got good footwork and stuff. What do you think of Lola Vice? Is NXT going to give her an opportunity for the championship? I think the shenanigans with Julia and Stephanie Vaquer through the women's division in complete chaos. And then Triple H called up both of them and threw everybody into chaos. So now they have to build up new contenders. JC Jane being the star. Look, they turned JC Jane from a joke to a legitimate champion. But it's clear that she's just in that spot because she's a great gatekeeper. And they're building up the next people behind her, which is going to be like Mariah May and Jordan Grace, who probably won't be in there long. But then you got, Lola Vice and Jada Parker and Kalani Jordan and Sol Ruka and all of them. So once they get done with Mariah and Jordan, because they're not going to be in NXT for long, I don't think they're going to be in there a year. Then they're probably JC Jane will probably drop the belts by Lola Vice or Jada Parker or something. And then who knows what happens to JC Jane after that. They may put her in a tag team and bring her up to the main roster. She's just a tag team jabroni for the next 2 years before she gets cut. Who knows? But I don't think they're going to show the same reverence for JC Jane on the main roster that they do on NXT. I just don't see it. I don't see it. Even though she's doing a good job, I don't think it's going to work. I don't think JC Jane versus Rhea Ripley is going to move anybody. I don't think her versus Io Shirai is going to move anybody. I don't think it's going to work. And it's unfortunate. But I'm just thinking about how Triple H managed to not do shit with Julia, managed to not do a damn thing with Stephanie Vaquer, not do anything with Jade Cargill, not do anything with Tiffany Stratton for a long time before she finally got the belt, not do anything with I said Jade Cargill already. So many girls, so much talent, not doing nothing. He's not going to bend over backwards for JC Jane. So, and he's not going to bend over backwards for Fallon Henley. So they should not buy the house. How about that? If you're thinking about buying a house, rethink it. Get a roommate. Because once JC's run as this double champion is over, we're just counting the days before she's unemployed. Unless there's something I don't know, and she's like Triple H's secret daughter or something like that. Otherwise, I don't think JC Jane's going to be long for this world after that. Fallon Henley is the star of the faction. Jasmine Nix is one of the looks of the faction. Who the fuck is JC Jane? JC Jane is good. She's a good middle ground. And obviously, Fallon Henley should have been the breakout star of the group. She's the better wrestler of the two, but she's not. But JC Jane is a good heat magnet. Like, she's really good at getting heat, and people are not liking her. And she's been around for a long time. So I see why they went in that direction. But it probably would have been natural for it to be Fallon Henley, because she's not only better looking, but she's a better wrestler. She was more over. She had a better personality. But she might actually work better as a babyface too, Fallon Henley, because she was a good babyface. When she was hanging out with the Cowboys, or the Hillbilly Boys, she was one of the more over parts of that group. Yeah, Fallon is from the Indies, and so is what's her name? So is JC Jane. She worked the Indies before this. It's all part of the show. Just enjoy the show, whatever. Correction, translator, Rhea reminded Triple H of China. That's the only reason why. I hope not. Because that would be quite gross. I like JC Jane too. It's rare that you see an underdog heel champion like this that get a run like this, so I'm enjoying it. Like, she's not going to be a dominant champion, and she doesn't need to be. She's sleazy, so it works. And they're not trying to make it not sleazy. Like, she's still cheating heavily, and if left by herself, she's going to lose. And nobody's going to be upset about it because that's what she was doing before. They have already set the standard that JC Jane is a beatable champion, and she has not broken from that standard yet. So it's all good. Okay. They're consistent at the very least. It's not like they flipped and all of a sudden she's now, Brockette and she's killing people in 32 seconds. No, they didn't do that. They're keeping it pretty consistent with her character, and she's actually improved in the ring. She's good. She's able to hold her own with Stephanie or Masha or any of the other girls. She can hold her own. She can do her thing. I'm just thinking on the main roster, it's not going to work. How do I think it's going to play out once the invasion is over? Well, I'm guessing they're going to do this invasion thing until TNA is settled in their new home, TV home, wherever that's going to be. They'll probably continue to do crossovers for a little bit. And then once the training wheels get off, you'll probably see less and less of those crossovers. That's how I think it's going to work. But obviously, I think Trick Williams loses his belt at Bound for Glory to Mike Santana. I think Indy Hartwell takes the belt from JC Jane. Hopefully, Indy Hartwell doesn't break JC Jane's spine or anything like that because she sucks too. They may put one of those NXT belts on a TNA wrestler. Not sure. My guess would be the North American title, but I don't want that to happen now because Tavion Heights is in the spot, and I'm glad for that. So hopefully they don't do anything stupid and decide to have Ethan Page beat him and then lose the belt to Macklin. I just know if he's going to lose the belt anyway, it's going to be Macklin. Damn, I don't want that. That sucks so bad. Do I think WWE is going to put the title on Stephanie back here since Naomi is going to be out? All right, so the question was whether Naomi is pregnant or not. Let's close with this because I've been doing this for a while. I thought they were going to announce tonight that Naomi was pregnant. That's what I thought. They said she's going to be out for a really long time, so that either means knees, back, or neck. All right? Out for a really long time means knees, back, or neck, if she's not pregnant. Pregnancy did come up in her interview with Stephanie McMahon. There was no details, like she didn't say she was pregnant, but they did discuss that, hey, she talked about, having a kid when she left in 2022, which would have been the right time to do it because she didn't have a fucking job. She went ahead and did it. People have to understand timing, right? She could have got pregnant while she was in TNA. Nobody would have cared. If she is pregnant, I don't see why they just wouldn't have announced it. So they say she showed up to the event and then she wasn't cleared. So the question is, did they know she was not cleared when she showed up? Or did they do some kind of test when she got there and she wasn't cleared? We don't know. I was kind of in the camp of pregnant for a while. When they said she was going to be out for a long time and they didn't say why, I'm like, there's not even a question like was she injured her neck, whether she injured her back, whether she tore her ACL. Like usually there's something. Did she contract like MRSA? Like if you have MRSA, you want to go be out with that damn long. Did she have like a leukemia thing, like a sickle cell thing? If she had a concussion, she's not going to be out for the rest of the year. If she's going to be out more than a month, I think they should take the belt though. I don't think you keep the belt out of rotation. You know, give it to Stephanie. I think you give it to a heel so Stephanie could take it from the heel. Who should that heel be? I don't know. Maybe Roxanne Perez. Triple H would probably like that idea. Give it to Roxanne. But I do kind of think she's pregnant. Only because the conversation came up in the podcast about how she feels like she can go out and become a mother and come back to the business. Something tells me that her and Jimmy are probably just planning it. But I think if she wants to get pregnant, she should do the right thing and drop the belt. Drop the belt first, and then go have your baby. That's what I suggest. But I hope it's pregnant, because anything else would be, at her age, would be difficult to come back from. Especially if it's a neck injury. It's going to be hard. She's already like late 30s. It's going to be hard. Severe knee injury, when the good thing about Naomi is her flexibility and how she can move, hard. If it's her back, hard. Can't lift. Can't really do anything with anybody. This will be like her first major injury. I don't think she's ever had I think she had a serious injury in like 2016, 2017 or something like that. But outside of that, I don't think she had any real serious injuries. But I hope it's not an injury. I would prefer her that she's pregnant than hurt. You know, you can bounce back from pregnancy pretty quickly. You're gonna gain some weight, but you'll bounce back from that if you don't die in childbirth, obviously. But some serious knee, back, neck injuries, nah. She's a problem. I think getting pregnant right now would be a really stupid idea. I think it would be a real dumb idea. But then again, maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was an accident. They weren't trying, and whoop, there it is. And at her age, she might as well go ahead and have it. Especially if she's going to have them at all. Jimmy was being impatient. Couldn't wait one more month. Couldn't wait one more month. I think she was going to lose the belt to Stephanie anyway. So, conventional wisdom would just say go with your original plan and put the belt on Stephanie. But I say put it on a heel first and let Stephanie chase that heel, and then have Stephanie win the belt in a match with some heat. When you could put the belt on a heel cold, I don't suggest putting the belt on a babyface cold. I just don't suggest it. It's stupid. It's disgusting. Don't do that. Babyfaces should earn it. Heels can get it for free. Babyfaces should earn it. Too much eat. Too much eating and skeeting. Heel Rhea. Oh my God, you got Triple H brain. Can we come up with somebody else, man? I saw somebody say Chelsea Green. I wouldn't do that. But Chelsea Green is a good opponent. But Chelsea Green as world champion is kind of nuts. Maybe I do like that actually. Because it's nuts. Yeah, I kind of like that. And Chelsea Green, she pops up anywhere anyway. And plus you have a weak division. Chelsea Green as the world champion, wrestling Io and Rhea and getting so close to losing, only to get yanked out of the ring. And that's a good stuff. I can deal with that. It's similar to where she was a United States champion, and I think that people would buy Chelsea Green as the world champion for a short bit, and then have Stephanie beat her in like, I don't know, 3 months, let's say, after Chelsea survives matches with people who are much better than she is. You have her lose to Stephanie Becker, and now you got Stephanie with some heat to her. I don't mind that. It's a good idea, actually. All right, y'all. You guys have a great weekend. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.